Well, it's time, I think, for a little story about 4th of July weekend, almost 50 years ago. Scarlet fever took most of my hearing before I was 1 year old, but fortunately the little I had left was in the low to upper male voice range. Despite being profoundly hard of hearing, I developed a love of music. It's been a part of my life, a big part. My daddy played the guitar, mostly rhythm on country tunes, and my granny, his mama, could pretty much play any instrument she touched. About everyone in the family could sing hymns a cappella from the Shape Note Sacred Heart or Columbia hymn books. And the high point of the summer growing up was an all-day singing and dinner on the ground at my grandparents' Beach Hill Baptist Church of Christ. Thus I grew up with a deep understanding and appreciation for traditional forms of music, mostly old-time country and gospel. In the early 1970s, my friend John, who was aware of my interest in traditional music, mentioned that a Bluegrass festival was coming up in a few weeks and wondered if I'd be interested in going. I'd never been to one and I knew little about them, but I said sure. We packed up our camping gear and headed out to Cosby Knob in Cott County, Tennessee. We arrived as the sun was setting on Thursday evening. The line of cars was backed up on the two-lane country road stretched for miles. As we finally pulled up, a large banner stretched across the gate and said, "Welcome to the 20th anniversary Cosby Ramp Festival." A massive cloud of dust kicked up by the traffic hung over the small valley. We paid our entrance fee and found a place to pitch our tents. Although I'd spent much of my youth wandering around in the mountains in East Tennessee, I'd not spent much time in Cott County and never even heard of a ramp. I had no idea what it was. Turns out the potent mountain ramp is a wild edible onion similar to a leek and characterized as, quote, the sweetest tasting and vilest smelling vegetable in Mother Nature's bounty, end quote. Traditionally, mountain people harvest them in the late spring and early summer. The mountain ramp is sweet with a slight garlic flavor, but the real kicker is the potent odor which percolates out of your skin over several days following the consumption. The odor is so strong and so objectionable that school children with ramp odor were sent home from school till it wore off. Ramps were prepared in every conceivable manner, but most often simply chopped up and fried or sauteed in bacon grease or fatback, or maybe slow cooked with pinto beans. Regardless, throughout the weekend, the odor of cooking ramps wafted across the field and in front of the stage, intermingled with the smells of white whiskey and the occasional scent of the magical herb. Early Friday morning, my companion and I got up, made a little breakfast. We spent most of the day listening to the up-and-coming bluegrass country bands. I tried a bowl of beans and ramps, and though it was edible, I decided I would stick to drinking and the food that we'd brought with us. The crowd grew throughout the day in anticipation of the headliners who would be performing the following day, Saturday. By evening, they announced the crowd was about 6,000 people. It didn't seem that big. The field was large, and except for the immediate area of the stage, folks were pretty spread out. My friend and I thoroughly enjoyed ourselves, but really anticipating the Saturday and the big-name performers. When Saturday came, I got up late, nursing a slight hangover, and drifted down the hill toward the stage area. The stage was located at a slow point in a small valley. The hills formed a natural amphitheater. By noon, the crowd had reached at least 2,000 folks spread out across the field, mostly sitting on lawn chairs or laying on blankets. A small crowd of 200 or 300 people surrounded the stage. The featured performers were scheduled to kick off about noon, headed by Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. Bill Monroe was styled the father of bluegrass, and it was hard to beat him on Uncle Pen or Blue Moon over Kentucky, but he was not my favorite. I never liked the bluegrass label. This kind of traditional or mountain music had been around a long time before he was born. Nonetheless, he deserved credit for his role in promoting its popularity. Dr. Ralph Stanley and the Clinch Mountain Boys were my favorite. Ralph and his brother Carter from Southwest Virginia in the Blue Ridge. They briefly played with Bill Monroe right after World War II before forming the Stanley Brothers. I grew up on my daddy Stanley Brothers gospel albums. About 5 years before the festival, the brothers had gone their separate ways. Ralph played the banjo, a banjo, clawhammer style. He had a high nasal tenor, perfect for traditional songs. That day, as he broke from Gold Watch and Chain into Little Birdie, the sky opened up with a pouring rain and a huge, tremendous clap of thunder. Most people ran for cover, but a small group held out in front of the stage. As Little Birdie came to an end, the thunder and lightning sounded more like a 1776 battle than a storm, and we decided to give up. Walking up the hill, a couple of long-haired guys offered me a pull off of their tequila bottle. I replied, "Well, boys, I appreciate the offer, but I don't think so. Don't you know that stuff will take the varnish off your lungs?" They busted out laughing, and the taller of the two handed me his joint. I took a big, long toke off of it and allowed us how it was greatly appreciated. Thank you.